Natural Resource Administration, I never thought I'm going to be in competition with NRA. To my relief, there are names a little bit less infamous than that. There is a LUST program in EPA, and there is another program Chesapeake program has come up with. They call it CRAP, which is, it sort of makes me feel a little bit better about our name. But I'm not going to throw a whole lot of numbers at you because overall, a lot of this stuff I can provide it to you separately or after the meeting. The breakdown of the numbers very quickly, what has happened in FY11, are local funding, as Christoph described here, the funds that are appropriated annually under the general fund has decreased now to somewhere about 8% of the total budget for this administration. And consequently, what I have tried to do to work with Christoph to aggressively pursue two other sources of funding. One of them is the federal funding, and then the revenue side. On the revenue part, what we have, the two largest and perhaps well-known funding that we have, one is Stormwater Management Fund, that a number of you guys worked with us a couple of years ago to establish. Essentially, it charges residences and commercial building, as well as the federal agencies, proportionate to the impervious amount of properties that they have. And as you are all aware, there were some issues associated with feds paying or not paying, and I want to really thank all of you guys that have helped us work with Senator Cardin to enable us, and I think by default help all the other jurisdictions throughout the country to receive that fee from the federal agencies as well. That is, at the present time, is the largest chunk of revenue funds we have. The second to that is the bag bill that, again, a number of you helped us, especially Chris. I remember we had something like about 95 people sitting there testifying at the Tommy Wells's hearing. That is our second largest revenue funds that we have. And one other thing that I want to also thank everybody that has worked on that, those funds have not been really impacted. The funds have been not converted to lapsing, and primarily because of their dedication to the specific purposes of meeting the MS4 permit requirements and Anacostia cleanup. What we have done, very briefly, we have focused MS4 funds on the implementation of the permit. Some of you may be aware or not that we are negotiating with EPA on the permit. The negotiation is finished as far as we are concerned. My last interaction with EPA reflected the fact that there were some internal issues on the comments they had received from other federal agencies. Just a very quick thing, this is the only permit in the nation that will require us to require federal agencies to do certain type of stormwater management on their facilities, and there apparently between the sister agencies at the federal level there is some issues of how that would be implemented, primarily on the ESA requirement, the Energy Independence and Security Act. On the bag bill, so going back on the MS4, some of the capital funding that we have lined up there, we are holding off slightly till the permit is issued, and we have been told that any day that would be issued. So when that is issued, then we will be really working real fast in terms of implementing a lot of those projects. What I have started to do, essentially assume that the permit will be issued the way we have negotiated, so we are working with that spirit rather than sort of on the actual non-capital stuff holding off. On the bag bill, Christoph indicated that the process for collection of the fees has been up and down. Last month, 2 months ago, we got about $80,000, and then that last month it went up again. But some of the comments we have been receiving was, whether that was totally reflective of the reduction in bag purchase or lack of enforcement, and that really is an issue. So what we did about a year ago, we started hiring a person to do the inspection and enforcement work, and because of the nature of this inspection, it was very difficult to just assign one person to do that, so we did a cross training for about 30 different inspectors, additional inspectors across the entire department, and we have started inspecting and enforcing, and I have the numbers and I'm not going to go over it, but it seems like we need to step up the enforcement to make sure the actual revenue that doesn't come in, it's not totally reflective of the purchase. There could be folks that are not actually charging people for that. So we are chasing that issue. One thing that I wanted to focus on very quickly is the fact that because of the local funding for this administration has dropped so dramatically, we have focused on the federal, and the cut at the federal level is the one that I'm very, very concerned about. What we did last year, for those of you guys that are familiar with the ARA process, the ARA funding for the stormwater management and drinking water, safe drinking water, was inserted into the SRF, a State Revolving Fund. The State Revolving Fund in DC is not a loan fund as it is in many other states, or all the other states. Ours is a grant. And we made actually an effort and succeeded in allocating the entire fund, which was nearly $20 million for the water pollution control part of it, to the green projects. That's the only jurisdiction in the entire country that did that, although the target was 20%. And another step I have taken is that with Christoph's help, we have decided to, rather than essentially dedicate that fund entirely to gray infrastructure. Traditionally, this has been going essentially to DC Water for hard engineering stuff. We decided to set up a brand new program to have this fund open to all of the green projects. And our target is to go for approximately 50% green. It cannot, we would be happy if it is 100%, but I don't want to limit it, because after all, DC Water, with all the difficulties that they have with the ENR and the long-term control plan, they can depend on this fund as well as anything else. The reason I brought this up is the most recent numbers that came out of ASWIPCA reflects a major reduction in the SRF nationally. And some of you that are familiar with EPA's budget, really the only two big chunks of money that EPA has, one is the SRF, the other one is Superfund. And SRF was the main place that the Congress decided to cut some for this reconciliation that they had last Friday, which I'm very happy because I'm back here working. But now that we have tapped into that fund, it's really going to impact us dramatically. On the other side, we were just informed, even on the president's budget, I'm not talking about the Congress, on the president's budget, our Section 319 that deals with a number of things that you guys are very familiar with, reverse smart homes, green roof subsidies, porous pavements, things of that nature that have been extremely successful and very, very popular. That has been, at the president's side, has been suggested to be cut by 17 or 18%. And another group that I manage, Fish and Wildlife Division, their wildlife grant was slated to be cut by 40%. So what I want to convey to you all, if there is any kind of work you want to focus on, probably the federal side, at least for me, the federal side would be the part that would hurt us dramatically. And what has happened with the shifting that we have to do here and there locally, I'm now in a very, very tight spot. We don't have a whole heck of a lot of flexibility because of the unique processes that this department manages its money. We have to have the local to leverage or match federal. So it's a very tight balance. And when one of them goes out of kilt, the process has more than the impact of that particular amount. In other words, if the federal part goes down 10%, the total impact may end up to be 20, 30, or 40%. And We have had a very, very successful program in the water pollution control, but a lot of it is really jeopardized at various different levels in the state. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Hamid.